This is Tom Holland for Field Target Tech. Back at the range again. I am trying the, I'm going to use the 10.5 JSBs, 10.3 grain JSBs in my Marauder, and that's what my go-to pellet's going to be. It had really good promising results last week. There wasn't a lot of wind drift compared to the Field Target Trophies, my normal go-to pellet as of recently. I've been exploring some of the heavy ones. Maybe for some down the future. There was a couple other promising weight pellets, but I don't have time to play with them. I'm not going to mess with them before Crosman. So we're going with 10.3s in Wftf out of the Marauder. So we're going to shoot a little bit. We're going to do some groups, and we're going to get my pistol up and running, which I had a little bit of a speed bump. I put a humor regulator in it that I had in my Challenger, and the regulator has failed. I had a little bit of a situation with it where I basically made a bomb I couldn't take apart. What ended up happening was the setting on the humor regulator, either it let a full 3,000 psi in or it let nothing in, and that was even like a 16th or an 1/8 of a turn. It went from 3,000 to 0. So in effect what ended up happening was I pressurized the cylinder of the gun, but none of the pressure got past the regulator. So I had no way to degas the gun other than to slowly unscrew the Foster fitting and just let it leak out when I heard air hissing and let it sit for an hour or two. But that's the one drawback when the regulator fails in that manner. I'm probably going to put a lane regulator in it next. That'll be a little bit down the road. That'll probably be before Pyramid actually. But for this week I'm just going to shoot 10-15 shots out of it and just keep charging it up, and it's a nail driver, and we're going to leave it at that. So let me get this thing sighted in, and I'm going to bring the pistol out in a little bit, and stick around. I'm going to put the camera downrange today at some point, and I'm going to show you some groups at 55 yards with the 10.3s, and we're going to have a little bit of a brisk wind here today, so that'll be a test of how much the 10.3 JSB Heavies don't drift, because I was pretty impressed with them last week. Last week we had a decent wind, and Field Target Trophies were drifting 4 or 5 inches, and these were drifting about 2. So even though they are going slower, they do look promising for what we're going to use them for. So stick around, and we'll be right back. Okay guys, we're back. I plinked a little bit, so I got the pistol sighted in. I'm not going to worry about a regulator for it, for Crosman. I'm just going to leave it alone. I'm getting a nice shot string out of it. My point of impact's not really moving, even though between 10 and 35 I'm getting maybe a 70 feet per second difference. It's not really affecting my point of impact at all. So I'm very pleased with the way the air pistol is shooting, even though it's unregulated. I'll just make a point of filling it up every 20 shots or so, just to keep it even more consistent. We shot the Steyr in, and we have some stupid winds here today, and I'm pretty impressed with the JSB Heavies out of the Steyr. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the camera here, and we're going to go down range, and we're going to show you some of the groups at some of the longer distances that I've shot. I'm very impressed with the lack of wind drift of the 10.3 JSB Heavies, unsorted right out of the tin. I haven't checked them for weight, head size, or anything. So this is a 35-yard target right here, and you can see how small that is compared to my hand. So that's pretty good wind drift, considering that the high winds that we have. And this is 5 or 6 shots in there, and you had the wind take that one. These are when I just initially sighted it in to make sure it was good. We come over here to 45 yards, and again we got a nice group. We got about 5 or 6 of them there. We got a couple to the left a little bit, and we have one flyer. One flyer, I attribute that to maybe a little bit of shifting wind and possibly a bad pellet on top of that. And here at 50 yards, with the high winds that we have, again, very little wind drift, just maybe about an inch or so at that distance. Very pleased with it. And back here all the way to 55. Again, we have a nice group here. Wind kicked a couple to the left and to the right. Very, very consistent. Had a high wind there. I might have flinched on that, or a bad pellet or something. So, that being said, all the way back there to our bench, with the Steyr, it worked out. The Steyr worked out rather well. So what I'm going to do now is we're going to do some closer distances with the Steyr, and there's no question in my mind that they'll be dead on. And then we're going to take the Marauder with the same pellet, and we're going to see what we can do with the Marauder. We're going to respray the targets, and I'll show you the groups from the Marauder. From just sighting it in, the groups from the Marauder were a whole lot better than the groups in the wind with the field target trophies. So the heavier pellet is helping in this wind. So stick around, and we'll be back in a bit. Okay guys, we just got finished doing the Marauder. We have still sustained winds here, as you can probably hear in the microphone. I'm going to take the camera, and we're going to go, and we are going to take a look at some of the groups downrange in the wind. As I said, it's a very heavy wind here. It's probably gusting to 25 miles an hour in some ways, but it did well. But I think the Steyr beat it out a little bit, and we're going to show you some of those groups. Here we have a 30-yard group. Again, not too bad in the wind considering how heavy the wind is. Again, over here we have 35. Good group considering the wind. And also, good group also considering this is 40 yards at this distance. At 45, still a decent group. Probably about an inch and a quarter or so, maybe a little bit bigger than that. And then things started to open up a little bit here at 50. As you see, there's some heavy lefts and rights on this target. And the same thing basically with 55 rather. It opened up a little bit compared to the Steyr. So I attribute that basically to the different twist rates of the Steyr barrel and the Marauder barrel. Marauder has a 1 in 12 twist. Steyr barrel has a 1 in 16. So maybe those heavier pellets like a little bit slower of a twist than a 1 in 12. So we're going to go respray the targets again, and we are going to bring the TM1000 out with the Kahles scope on it. I had 2 Sightrons on the Marauder. I have a regular Sightron S3 on the Marauder, and on the Steyr I have the MRAD S3 Sightron. So now we're going to try the TM1000 with the Kahles scope on it. We're going to see how that does in the wind. So we'll spray the targets again, start all over, and we'll compare the TM1000. So stick around. Okay guys, just got done with the TM1000. Groups were absolutely excellent, and the wind is even kicking up a little bit harder. We're going to go down range, and we're going to take a few looks and ganders at some of the groups down there. I think out of all of them, the TM1000 did the best overall, with the Steyr second and the Marauder last. I attribute that to the twist rate, not the quality of the gun or anything like that, because that guy's shooting very well. So here we go at 30, and all of these are about 10-shot groups. So you can probably hear the wind in the microphone again. Like I said, it's pretty windy out here. So we're going to go to 35 yards. And again, keep in mind, I didn't have this thing sighted in, so I had to move it over a little bit here and there. But that's a good group considering we're at 20-25 mile an hour winds. And at 40 yards, being that this target moves, I shot 4 or 5 of them there, and it scooted it over, so I had to hit him back in the head to straighten him out a little bit. And each one of those is about 3 or 4 shots. So I'm very pleased with that at 40 yards, considering our wind. Again, here, this is 8-10 shots. I had it sighted in, so I was off just a little bit. So 45 yards, we're still on. We're still relatively good with wind with these pellets. This was my first shot. It was my second. I was working with my elevation. Once I got it in, again, that was left and right a little bit for the wind. And considering how heavy the wind we have here, to have that pellet only drift an inch in 20-25 mile an hour gusts here, I think is pretty damn good. And last at 55, again, that was my first shot. Once I brought it up a little bit level to sight it in, there's my group. And that's about 10 or 15 shots in that. I spend more time at the longer distance just to make sure. And if you look at that, that's probably 1.5 inches. So I'm very pleased with the way the TM1000 is going to shoot. So as of right now, we're going to use the TM1000, and the Steyr will be the backup along with the Marauder in case something drastic happens. So I'll have to change my equipment list for Crosman. I'd like to shoot a Crosman product at the Crosman shoot, but it's not the better shooting of the guns that I have at the moment. So 10-3s, JSB Heavies are the way to go. I think some guys in Wftf class are going to be very surprised with the performance of these pellets, because I think 1 or 2 other guys are using them as well in the same class. So stick around. I'm going to be sighting in the pistol. Let me just put this down. I'll be sighting in the pistol, and I won't do too much with that. That thing has just been a nail driver. I probably won't do any more of these, but that shows you what the viability for using a 10.3 weight pellet for Wftf. It is a viable option, as all 3 guns proved. Even the Marauder shot very well, even though it wasn't the best of the 3. Considering, and you can hear the wind, I'm sure you can see the wind in back of me and everything. It's blowing. So I'm very pleased with all 3 guns, actually, with the way they shot. I'll probably put an older barrel with a different twist rate on the Marauder, and we're going to see what that can do. I think it has a lot to do with the twist rate. It's too fast of a twist rate from that barrel that's on there now. So my next video I'm going to have, it's probably going to be from Crosman, and I'm going to sit down at a nice desk in a hotel room where it's nice and quiet, and I'm going to put together the pellet gauge R that Mr. Jerry Couples sent to me, as I mentioned the other day. I'm going to show how that is assembled, and then I'm going to show its use, how you use that gauge properly. I will compare that also to the regular pellet gauge that I have, so you'll be able to see both versions of the pellet gauge, the original pellet gauge and the pellet gauge R. So that'll be coming probably next week sometime, and I'm going to about wrap it up for here. And my name is Tom Holland for Field Target Tech.